It's the Awake Space Podcast. I'm Laurie Rivers, your host, here to help you with some inspiration to get those aspirations out into the world. And I know it's crunchy. I know the world is wild and crazy, and I know you're waiting for that calm space. I wish I could tell you when it's going to happen. It's not going to happen right now. So, we're going to talk about how to move through these crazy times. I really want to get you prepared for the full moon at the end of the month. Okay. It is a doozy. I know I keep talking about it, but it's not because it's a partial lunar eclipse. I mean, that's there. It is the fact it is square Uranus. Okay. That makes this like, let's say there was no eclipse. This is a doozy with it. And the moon is in an applying trine with Mars. So we're going to talk a little bit about that here on the podcast and what you can do about it. Okay. Because knowledge isn't power if you don't know what to do with it. Knowledge is only power when you know how to make your next move. And using astrology to know your next moves is what I'm all about. So that's that. That's where we're going to get you ready for that. We've got Q&A from the Awake Space community on here and a very special announcement here at the top of the podcast. I'm going to give you a sneak peek about what's going to happen this week. The members of the community that are magazine subscribers during my live stream with them on Sunday night said, yeah, sure, put out part of it. That's cool. So that's what we're going to do. If you are in the community, we live stream every Sunday evening for the magazine subscribers and up. And if you are a stargazer, or your grandfathered stargazer, then you get it on Tuesday mornings, the full entire whole enchilada. This live stream I did this Sunday, I don't just go through what's in the headlines. I talk about like how to use the energy, how to make it through. And I really worked on helping to prep you all to understand what's coming because this full moon is all about the man behind the curtain. And that will be next week's episode. But this week, we're going to talk about the cosmic undertow. So get your tea, get your coffee, get your Red Bull, get your matcha, get your H2O. And whether we're going to work together, getting the kids ready for school, can you believe it's time already? My God. Or if we are just taking a hot girl, hot guy walk, getting the cat in the backpack. I'm always amazed by the cat or the dog in the backpack. That's pretty cool. Whatever we're doing, we're going to do it together. All right, all right, all right. Last week we talked about the history of astrology. If you missed that episode, go and check it out. I just felt it was really important to understand that Western tropical astrology does not equate to white European astrology. It's easy to do. But there were contributions from many different parts of the world, especially during the Islamic Empire period. In fact, Timbuktu held some important documents. Some did not get stolen during the 2013 raids on that very historic library. If you want to check out something cool, read about Timbuktu because different families are guardians of different documents. And it's just fascinating. And unfortunately, there were rebel groups who had religious leadings kind of, it's like extremists of any kind don't really follow their faith. I don't care what religion it is. But anyway, there were a lot of documents that did get destroyed, but they got documents either out where they couldn't be harmed or they hid them. And they see their guardianship of these libraries of scrolls as a sacred thing. And as a Venus and Gemini person, I fully honor that. So check that stuff out. That's pretty cool. Yeah. So it caused a little hubbub. It's funny. Some people took exception to me giving them a hard time for saying they're Hellenist and using outer planets. But, either you follow the method or you don't follow the method. But I can't help it. I'm an academic. I love methodology. I love process. That way we can measure accuracy. You can't measure accuracy just, on opinion. Yeah, you really can. So, although I do have a little correction. So, Chiron, yes, it is an asteroid. And yes, it is also a comet and sometimes behaves like a planet. So, that's why some people call it a planet. But it's really kind of three in one. It's a really weird thing. And it's only 124 miles long. So, it's the size of the country of Bahrain, which is 124 square miles. So, which is like a speck on the map when you look at it. So it's still very far reaching. I think people overemphasize the outer planets. Doesn't mean they don't have influence. It's just we don't self examine enough when we're looking at our personal astrology because we're looking for that mystery, right? We're, usually when you go to study astrology, you're trying to figure yourself out and you're trying to look for the reasons why. Why did this happen? What happened when this happened? And why am I the way I am? And so with all of the emphasis on the outer planet, you'd be like, oh my God, that's why I'm going through my Pluto square Pluto. Yeah, you and everybody else in a very wide age group. Because if you factor in an aspect can be 8 degrees, and Pluto is a very slow moving, celestial body, hello, that's a whole lot of people. Pluto square Pluto is a time where society is changing at a deep level, massive transformation. So you have to have massive inner transformation to make it through that. Now, if you have inner planets conjunct your Pluto, you could think, then it's very personal. But otherwise, you and the rest of everybody else is going through these major changes and also being activated into a call to action. Okay. And I'm not diminishing how uncomfortable it can be. I've lived through it. Okay. I've lived through it. But Pluto isn't a generational planet. We've only lived through the part that it appears semi generational because a generation is 20 years. Okay. Pluto doesn't spend an equal 20 years per sign. We are now in the part of the Pluto where it slows down. We've never seen a full cycle. So anybody talking about Pluto with their whole chest is maybe experiencing the Dunning-Kruger effect. We are the first living astrologers to witness Pluto in Aquarius in action, just like we were the first living astrologers to witness it in Capricorn. We were the first to witness it in Sagittarius, which by the way was only 11 years in its transit, okay? It wasn't 20. So, it sounds like a great idea to be able to say it's generational, and that's because it kind of was, 16, 14, 12 years, 11 years, 16 again. And Pluto in Aquarius is closer because it's just over 20 years. But then Pluto in Pisces is 25 years. And Pluto in Aries is 30. Okay. So the kids born with Pluto in Aquarius today will not see a Pluto square Pluto in their lifetimes. They're not going to live to see Pluto. Well, they might see it. Those ones might see it. Let me edit. The kids born today, if they live to be relatively old, might see Pluto in Taurus. Maybe. End of their lives. Because it's 2135. Okay. 2135. So let's do a little quick math. Let's do a little quick math. If you're born in 2026, let's put 2135 and 2026. They'd be 109 years old. So kids born today would have to live to be 109 years old to see the Pluto square, their Pluto. It is not a given you experience this, so it is not generational. It just means you're having to really transform to meet the moment. Lucky us, look at us, look at what we get to do. And we have lived during a time of massive social change and there's pushback against it. And we're also seeing, every institution under strain, every system under strain from the ecology up. Now, is this bad news? Well, depends on where you live, depends on who you are. It can also be an opportunity. So there's that. I just think it's important to have really good information when it comes to how we look at astrology, how we think about astrology. And so, right now, what we're living in this week, we've got Mars in Cancer. Mars in Cancer is not weak. And I think it's important we talk about that for a minute too, because there's some stuff up on deck, the themes. We've seen a lot of upheaval when it comes to discussions about womanhood online. Whether it is the Clancy case that's going on and about motherhood, whether it is what they said on that one podcast and blanking it, but Drew, which really was salacious clickbait, truly, to the Jules LeBron situation. And people are discussing, who's worthy, who's unworthy, who's a real woman, who isn't a woman. And I think it's got people up in a firestorm, which, funny enough, Mars and Cancer, and it is moving into a square with Venus and Libra. Okay. So, what is equal? What is fair? Who is what? And I'm not going to have an argument about what makes a woman a woman. But why we interpret things a certain way is down to patriarchy. And there were things said with that I've seen quoted or clips where they were talking about women can't be good arbiters of our own experience because we've been steeped in patriarchy. Like men haven't been. Patriarchy is a system, okay? And it's a system that's been around since about 200 years into the Bronze Age. So like 3,500 years. And throughout time and history, patriarchy has it's not even about men, it's about dominance and control. Okay. It really, I mean, if you want to use the technical meaning, yes, it is men are in charge. However, it is a stylistic understanding of what masculinity and femininity are. They're very, very narrow definitions. And I'm not talking about sex, I'm talking about gender. You have manly men who are strong and muscular and they do manly things. And then you have the fairest sex and oh, help me, Papa, help me. None of that is accurate or true. There's a handful of people in either demographic that meet that. We're human beings. Like, fun astrological fact. If an astrologer is looking at a chart, just the chart, not the name, date of birth, place, time, none of that, just a wheel, an astrology wheel with placements, and you are told that is a human being and not a different kind of event. You cannot see the gender. You cannot see the race. You cannot see the nationality. We can't see gender because it's a social construct. We can't see race as described in modern ways because race, as described in modern ways, was created in the 19th century. Okay. Maybe the 18th. It got started. We can see a few other things, but let me tell you, nation you were born in without the information. Because, and we can give a good guess based on how the chart's laid out if you're, born at extreme latitude or not, but we can't tell your nation. And that is because nationalism is a 19th century invention. Okay. The Greeks didn't see themselves as Greek. They saw themselves as an Athenian or Spartan or Macedonian. Okay. The Illyrians in Albania, shout out to my Albanians. Okay. They weren't even Greek. And that's a whole story. We can't see those things. What we can see is somebody fairer or darker skinned than the people they grew up with, than their family. Are they taller or shorter? Okay. Are they rounder or thinner or prone to that? Do they have long legs? Do they have big boobs? Okay. Are they muscular? And men can have big boobs too. Okay. Their moves. We can see that. We can give a good estimate if we don't have any other information. We don't see the latitude and longitude. We can still give a fair guess based on how the houses are shaped, how far north or south of the equator they were born. Okay? We can. But we can't know exactly without the coordinates, period. We can know if somebody fits into their culture or if they are an outsider or if they see themselves that way. We see the inner life, we can see the obstacles and challenges, and we can see the opportunities and the rewards. We can see the trauma and we can see the healing path. If an astrologer is well studied, if they are well studied, they can see all. What that tells me as somebody who was deep in the trenches in anthropology is that when we're looking at an astrology chart, what we're seeing is a freaking human being, how they express their energy, the potentials of that, what gives them pleasure, what causes them pain, what they need in a partnership, but it doesn't say they're going to get it, how they show up. Astrology isn't a parlor game. All right. It's not just horoscopes and Cosmo. Okay. Astrology is a field of study and it doesn't give us a movie script, but it is like reading the book of someone's life. And if you're with a good consultant like us at the Woke Astrology, okay, me, Shelby, Susie, Damien, we're going to ask you questions. We're going to be like, is it like this or is it like this? We don't need your whole life story and we'll prove our accuracy. I had my favorite one last week. I was reading for a client who had never had a reading before. So I did a quick jaunt through the natal chart before we got into the consultation. Because really, when you're booking with me, doing a natal chart reading isn't a bang for your buck, right? But I'll give you a quick orientation. And when I got to the midheaven, I was like, so this is the area of your chart that shows how you're viewed by other people. It's how the world sees you. And you are known for really good snacks. And that of all things got them. They jumped out of their seat. They're like, you have no idea. People actually come into my office for the snacks. I'm like, yeah, because you get the good ones. Yeah, we can see that. But if you never told me this was a woman or a man, I can't see if it's a woman or a man. If you don't tell me that you are white, black, brown, olive, reddish. If you have dark hair or light hair, I might give a guess. But I won't know your ethnicity. I won't know your phenotype. But I will be able to know if you are taller, shorter, if you're fairer than other people in your family or you're darker than other people in your family, that can show up. And it's not just the ascendant. There's a lot that goes into appearance. Ascendant is part of it. I can see if you're shy or if you're outgoing. Or if you're a mix of the two, I can see what you're passionate about. I see what lights your fire. But what we can't see is gender. Can't see it. Don't know unless we're told. So in a booking form. But even then, if you have kind of a gender neutral name, it could be their guy's name, girl's name, whatever. I don't know because I don't have are you male or female? What's your gender identity in my form? All of us at Woke Astrology are very informed. We're trauma informed. We're socially informed. And if we're not sure, we'll ask you how you prefer to be referred to. Can you see sexuality in a chart? Sometimes. Sometimes. In fact, if you're a member of the Awake Space community, I sometimes forget to talk about what you get as your bennies, but Sex and Love and Astrology is a like a seminar I gave back in 2021. It's one of my favorite ones I've ever done. And we cover the gamut. We talk about where love is in the chart. We talk about sexuality and the different kinds of sexual expression, including asexual. Okay. Because it's depth and breadth. And why am I bringing this up? Because we're watching these stupid arguments online, getting people outraged about who is worthy, who is unworthy, creating hierarchies. The age of hierarchy is over and it will be dismantled in the next 30 years. Okay. So you might as well dismantle it inside of ourselves because these stupid arguments are a distraction from the real issues, like climate change. While everybody's arguing over who can use what bathroom, water supply is in question. We're facing heat indexes we've never seen. That super El Nino is historic. It's almost like somebody predicted this, like in 2025 for this year. And meteorologists are finally catching up. We're going to have extreme weather in the winter. In some places, it's going to be wet and flooding. In other places, it's going to the freeze will be amazing and outstanding. And some places are going to be super dry, adding into their drought situation. depending on where you live in the world. We could see the Thwaites Glacier go in the next 2 years. That's the Doomsday Glacier in Antarctica. It will, if it goes, actually not if, but when it does go, it will rise sea level. So if you live on a coastline, you probably want to be looking about moving inland or being really, really prepared. And this isn't to scare you, this is to prepare you. But with all of that going on, which of course impacts food, manufacturing, employment, all the things that make life keep kicking, we're worried about who can use what bathroom. Do we not see the distractions? And these arguments with such strong opinions, I warned about that in my 2026 year ahead. I said, stop listening to what people say, watch what they're doing. Don't get yourself embroiled in outrage. Because when you get embroiled in outrage, you hand over your power. And it's an old fashioned rope a dope. They've got your attention over here while they're doing something over there. Okay. You got to put your focus on you guys. Some of why I'm talking about this is, of course, we have that big old Pisces full moon on August 28th in the 27th on the West Coast. So west of the Rockies. It'll be late on the 27th. East of the Rockies into the Eastern Hemisphere, we're looking at the 28th. It's not visible in Australia. So all my peeps down under Australia, New Zealand, you guys don't see it. Remember, an eclipse has to be visible, but it is a hell of a full moon. And this full moon is going to reveal the man behind the curtain. Okay. I am the great and terrible Oz. And it isn't. It's Kermit the Frog. Okay. We are going to have some truth bombs come out on Friday the 28th. Truth bombs. These ideas, these fairy tales, these stories, the indoctrination is going to get a jolt of lightning to it. That square to Uranus is intense. And collectively, we will have illusions dispelled. The fog will clear. The wool is removed from the eyes. The rose-colored glasses shattered. Collectively. On the individual level, this could be massive breakthroughs. This could be epiphanies and aha moments. And the truth, as much as it can sting, it does set us free. And we are able to move about the cabin differently. When you allow your social programming to be deconstructed and choose how you wish to construct yourself, not because of what other people think, but just truly going with what makes you thrive and find reasonable contentedness, your quality of life is vastly changed. This is a catalyzing moment. This is a galvanizing moment where all of humanity has this opportunity to hear that lovely popping sound when heads are removed from certain dark places. These ideas of not seeing the socialization for what it is that we all have it. We have to reconstruct, not just deconstruct. It's not enough to decenter men. It's not enough. Decentering is a step, but it's more about, have you centered yourself and your needs? You know, that ever sacrificing mother that everybody loves to talk about on Mother's Day, one day a year. What have you taught your kids? To take people for granted, right? We don't have to be brutal and controlling and do dominance and control, but we also don't need to martyr ourselves. And I think this full moon will bring it into crystal clear view that we have martyred ourselves to causes that do not serve us. And it doesn't mean suddenly lose your shit on people either. It's just really when you realize it, when you know better, you can do better, right? Dr. Maya Angelou said that when you know better, you can do better. So this Mars in Cancer, going back to it, I know I digressed, but join with me on my ramble and my rant. We'll just trip down the light fantastic here. Mars in Cancer is often viewed as weak because it comes from a patriarchal narrative. Cancer's a feminine sign. Mars is a masculine planet. Therefore, a masculine planet in a feminine sign is debilitated. Wrong. That also comes from this idea that women were never warriors, which is also wrong. Modern archaeology is cleaning up the mess of 100 and 200 years ago. Mars is the planet of action. The sign describes the action. Cancer is tenacious. It is not weak. I love it when people say Cancer's weak. Are you kidding? Are you kidding me? That's why I'm like, bring it. I don't have Cancer Mars, but as a Cancer, I'm like, weak would not be it. I don't think Mars is weak in any sign. It expresses itself differently. That's where we have to open our perspective and use better language. So we got Mars and Cancer. Women have an opportunity, if we're going to go by some older narratives, women have an opportunity to take action and be tenacious. But Cancer is a financial sign, it's security driven, it's strategic. Just because it's not grabbing a Vorpal blade and going snicker snack and Kalu Kalay doesn't mean it isn't strong. Violence isn't strength. Violence is fear based. We can flip that on its head. People who have to fight are scared. People who are overly defensive are scared. They're not secure. If you're secure, you don't need to fight. You can bide your time. You can lay in wait. You can devise a cunning trap. Well, why do you need to fight? If you've ever read The Art of War by Sun Tzu, you know the whole principles are about getting people to waste their own energy so you don't have to fight and expend your military and your personnel and exhaust your resources. Why do you think China's watching the United States make a fool out of itself right now? We're spending all this money, and they're like, okay, keep spending, keep bombing, keep doing shit. Rest of the world hates you. We're just gonna sit here. We got our own problems. We're gonna go deal with that. Mars and Cancer hangs on. It doesn't let go. The fight isn't done until it says it's done. Okay, if there is a fight. Action wise, it's very process oriented. It's from beginning to end. Okay. It's about getting something to viability. It's the production line. Okay. And it's making sure the production works. And I think we're going to see people really pushing the envelope further. And we're going to see more online debate about shit that riles people up instead of people paying attention to taking care of their own backyard, to taking care of their own community, taking care of their families, exhausting your energy into meaningless fights that blow over until the next one shows up when you could be getting ready now for winter because you do need to get ready now. Cancer Mars right now is a really good time to start looking at those sales, getting your canned goods, getting your non-perishables on the shelves, getting your canisters, containers refreshed if you need that. Because we're going to have supply chain issues when it comes to November and December because of weather. Get ready now. Get ready now while Mars is in Cancer. And we may see people trying to get ready for weather early. And as Mars moves into that square with Venus, we may see some early supply chain hiccups. So we'll see how it goes in September. But where we stand as we approach this full moon in Pisces, with the moon in a trine to Mars, with the moon in a trine to Mars, it's an approaching trine. Emotions are going to be high. We're going to see some things happen in the outer world that make the collective gasp. That trine is unrestricted energy. I know if you look at traditional astrology, it'll say, conjunctions can either be good or bad, squares are bad, trines are good. It's not that. Look at how the energy works when you come from a physics perspective. There's a lot of resistance involved in a square. There's no resistance in a trine. Resistance is creative, okay? Nothing gets created when things are easy. It requires a catalytic moment, whether you're creating a baby or you're creating a work of art or you have a business idea. It is because there is friction. Friction forces change. So squares are uncomfortable, and that's why they're called malefic. But discomfort is creative. When we can broaden our minds and broaden how we see things, we're able to take advantage of the energy. That's how we get to know our next moves. That is how we get to know our next moves. Instead of keeping our thoughts in this box that really inauthentic to who we are. We can broaden ourselves to understand this discomfort is forcing change, and the universe will dial up the volume until we take the next step. So it's better to be more prepared, and it's better to have more of an idea of how to use the discomfort than it is to get surprised by it. Okay. It is going to be easy to get caught up in the cosmic undertow as we move through the week and into next week. That's why I'm preparing you now. If you've been listening to me for any time at all, you know I only bang the drum hard when I do have a concern about what's upcoming. The fact I've been talking about this since July should be a clue. It should be a clue. And it does have to do with massive systemic change because everything does as we move through the foreseeable future. We're not going to get into the idyllic running through a field of daisies and having tea while we wear taffeta phase collectively. Doesn't mean you can't do it on a personal level. Doesn't mean you can't make the best damn finger sandwiches ever. Have some tea cakes, some scones, and some clotted cream, and a delicious Victoria Grey. By the way, Victoria Grey is a very, very good tea from Fortnum and Masons. I enjoyed it a lot. We have such great opportunity, each of us, to have breakthroughs. But our breakthroughs often are forced through discomfort. And as Buddha said, pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. And the way we reduce suffering is by learning to see the world through a different lens. That's why I talk about it all the time. So I want you guys really, 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 really working hard to catch yourselves before you get caught up in outrage, before you get caught up in debate. I know it can feel gratifying. So the better thing to do is ask yourself this question. When you feel yourself getting hot under the collar, ask yourself, where is this taking me? How is this helping me? Is this achieving any permanent outcome for the change I want to see in the world? If you're just giving your 2 cents and you don't care about outcomes, that's fine. You're not blowing your energy. If it is consuming your every waking thought and is disturbing your sleep, maybe it's not helpful. Maybe you need to turn that energy that you're putting out in the world and put it inward and then refocus and do something you can do something about. Because we all have power in different ways. We can all make contribution in different ways. I was scrolling through TikTok and this lady in Hawaii went to go shop the sales and grab food to take to different places that were providing food to the community because of power outages from the storm. That's taking direct action. Doing what you can because you can. She had the money to do it, so she did it. She grabbed treats for the volunteers. She grabbed water so they had extra supplies. That's taking direct action. She did what she could with what she had, how she could. We all can do those types of things. Okay. I'm on my high hours. The whole patriarchy thing, I've been talking about it for years about needing to de-patriarchyfy. That's right. It's my own word, de-patriarchyfy astrology. Because we need to de-patriarchyfy our freaking societies in this world. And it's not just the United States. Patriarchy is everywhere. And it didn't just start in the United States. Okay. It's not a new concept. And it takes time to undo. But if we don't deconstruct on the inside, we can't reconstruct. So we have to reconstruct. And it's not about making men act like women and women act like men and all that. That's still patriarchy. That's still dominance and control, dominant and submissive. None of that is actually natural. That whole alpha male, blah, 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 that was disproved by the researcher who coined the term. But yet it's stuck because it's schmexy. I know. It's time for the Q&A from the Awake Space Magazine subscribers. Every single week, I've been asking people to give me questions to answer, and they haven't been disappointing. I'm not gonna answer them in order because I actually tried to record this once already, and let's just say there were technical difficulties. So, Christy asked if there were historical cases, historical cases um, of astrologers. Do I know any stories, not necessarily personal, of times when astrology is thought to have been used as a tool to make big decisions, solve problems, or on a somewhat larger scale? Anytime in history, anywhere in the world. You'd like to hear some on the podcast sometime. So we'll look up different stories over time, but that has always been an astrologer's job up until about the 20th century, was to advise kings and queens and emperors and merchants and generals. Personality astrology is pretty new, pretty new. When astrologers in the past, so if we go back to, uh, let's say, let me find it. I was researching. So like in the Babylonian time, so Enuma, Anu, Anil, royal astronomers, astrologers, because astronomy and astrology was the same subject. They charted the skies and sent celestial omens directly to the king, kind of like my what's in the headlines. So, like, oh, we were looking and it looks like there's going to be a bad winter. You're going to have to like make sure everybody's got enough food. Or it looks like there's an invasion coming. That could be a big deal. You had to be really careful about how you phrase things because if you were really wrong, like if you missed an invasion, you could lose your head. Tiberius and Thrasyllus, Emperor Tiberius, kept the astrologer Thrasyllus in his inner circle on the island of Capri and used him to make political decisions. Augustus and Babylas, yeah, oh, sorry, Bulbillus, Augustus and Bulbillus. The Emperor Augusta also consulted to help guide his public image and rule. If we go later, John Dee was the trusted advisor. So he was the astrological and scientific advisor to England's Queen Elizabeth I. And in the Mughal courts, Indian emperors like Akbar kept Hindu and Persian astrologers so Vedic, and Persian astrologers tended to kind of lean towards Western. So he kept both at court to pick auspicious dates for military campaigns and weddings and all kinds of things like that. So I asked about medieval Europe in my search, and this is according to Google. Um, Guido Bonatti. He was the most famous astrologer of the 13th century, and he advised Italian military leaders and rulers, standing on bell towers to signal the exact astrologically perfect second for armies to march into battle. He probably used planetary hours for that. Definitely the movement of the moon, because the moon moves a degree every 2.5 hours. So they probably planned strategy. Um, in my personal experience, I helped a local group of people get rid of a mega school board member. So it was a client came to me and said, I know you're really ethical, but there's this guy on the school board who's really cuckoo and is trying to force through some policies that really don't do our kids any good. If we got his information, would you help us get him out? And I said, absolutely. And so they scheduled another appointment with me and I gave them the strategy to have him unelected, to get him kicked out so they could elect somebody else. I showed them his weaknesses. I showed them how to the best way. And the thing I love to do when I'm doing that, okay, whether it's somebody going through a divorce or it's somebody um, who is trying to defeat an opponent of some kind politically, I help them maneuver the other person to make mistakes. I'll be like, this is this person's weakness. And if you can get them to react this way, and this is how it'll probably work, then you can get them to screw up without you having to go on the offense. So a little bit of astrological jujitsu. I was very proud of that moment. When they got a hold of me and they're like, he's out. We got somebody else elected. He screwed up so bad. And I was like, excellent. Doing my part, doing my part. So, yeah, that's what astrologers do. And somebody who was wanting unsafe policies for young people is a concern. So there's that. Let's work up here. Let's see. Boogie Sugar Wolf says this may be a dumb question, but it is something I have always wondered when looking at our chart. Why are some houses smaller and some houses gigantic? I've always chalked it up to perspective, but why? So beyond the math, because this is one of the arguments the whole same people pit against the Placidus people, because they're like, they're not equal. Well, life's not equal. Each one of those houses represents how we interact with an area of life. Okay. And yes, the first house represents our sense of self and our physical body. It also represents our actual physicality and our physical existence, right? That's why it's how we defend ourselves as well, right? That house is naturally ruled by Aries, which is ruled by Mars. And so why would we ever need to defend ourselves? Because we're vulnerable, right? So there is math for the tropical zodiac, and the further away from the equator you're born, either north or south, the more uneven the houses become. Okay. So when you get above 50 degrees north or south latitude, you actually want to use the porphyry system. Okay, that's something I teach my intermediate students. So there's that. You can look up that math. V I don't wanna explain the math. I did enough math last week. So this week, we're gonna focus on the meaning of it. So imagine that you have a very wide first house, a narrower second house, third house, fourth house, and then the fifth house is really wide, and then the opposites, right? So whatever's going on in one house, its opposite house is a mirror in size. So if you live in an extreme environment, we go back to, just our natural human existence, not the modern society we live in where things work very differently. But if you were raised somewhere with a more extreme climate, wouldn't you have wouldn't you have more of a focus on survival? If you have a really wide second house, eighth house axis, wouldn't your focus is on resourcing yourself, that's huge. And it could be fifth, 11th house, where, and I did read a chart for somebody born um, way up in Norway. I can't remember exactly. It might have been Trondheim, but it might have been north of Trondheim. And they had an extremely huge first, seventh house axis, and then a sizable fifth, 11th house. And I was like, well, that makes sense because there's a big focus on survival if you're in extreme latitudes. And then you have that long winter. It's really dark, not a lot of sunlight. What are you going to do? You're going to be creative indoors, you know? So there you go. So that's why it is perspective. It is. It's our perspective of what we need to do to meet our environment. So that's stuff I teach in intermediate. Let's see. AG is asking, is there something general that can be attributed to sensitivity to new moons or full moons, or is it all based on natal charts and specific transits? Nice question, AG. Believe it or not, University of Washington did a study in 2018 that found that 70% of the participants had disrupted sleep patterns during full moons. And new moons, not as much, but full moons, yes. And they thought it was perhaps an evolutionary thing. They didn't go too deep into it, but just imagine when the moon is full, there's better hunting for nocturnal critters. It could be light sensitivity, but also we know that the moon is causal for things on planet Earth, and we are part of the planet. We are not separate from nature. We are not. Dominionism really screwed up. That's a Christian theology where, we were made to have dominion over the planet, but we are part of the planet. Um, we are part of the lifeblood of the planet. Everything living is part of the planet. We are not separate from the planet. So why wouldn't we be impacted by that? Now, how you personally react will be displayed in your personal astrology. And that's why I created Living by Luna, so people could track the lunar transits in a very specific process where you learn to observe your ebb and flow, and so that it becomes predictable, so you understand your own cycles. And then once you have a handle on what you're observing, you can then mitigate or work with your consciousness to address these cycles deliberately. Because in my own experience as a young astrologer, I started dreading certain lunar transits, and I'd be like, crap, I always feel shitty when it goes there in my chart. And then, a few years later, with more experience under my belt, I went, wait a minute, instead of dreading it, what if I work with the energy? What else can happen? And you start to liberate yourself, right? And then AG asks another questions, and keep them coming. Everybody can ask a question, and you're probably asking something somebody else is thinking about. So don't be shy to ask questions. You're helping other people. AG asks, can you touch on the Jupiter return at age 48? Um, First of all, there's no real way to prepare for Jupiter because Jupiter is the magnifying lens. What you can do is look ahead at the chart and be like, okay, that Jupiter return chart is showing an emphasis in a certain house. And that's where the magnifying lens is going to be over the next, 12 years. Every single person's Jupiter return is going to be different, just like everybody's Saturn return is different. Now, Saturn returns are developmental. They show the human developmental process. And in the astrology of the child, the part 2, so the second lecture, there's 3 lectures total. In the second lecture, I talk about the Saturn cycle. Okay. The Jupiter cycle is every 12 years, and it is just a magnifying lens on an area of life. Okay. Jupiter returns are not necessarily like the hippy dippy skippy super fun experience, but it doesn't mean it has to be hard either. It depends on what sign your Jupiter is in, what natal placement it is, what aspects it is making, or is being made to it, or it is making in your birth chart, and the transits that are going on during your Jupiter return. Jupiter changes signs every 12 months. Every 12 months. There's no one size fits all for this, or any transit, but this is less of those defining moments in time like a Saturn return, a Uranus return. These are those decision points, the Saturn opposition. It's a decision point. Jupiter returns magnify whatever house it's in for the return chart. And I believe you can make planetary return charts besides the solar and lunar at astro-seek.com. Okay, I believe so. In my professional software, I will look at it. So in readings with me, if I see you've got a return coming up or you just had one, I'll pull solar, lunar, I'll pull your Mars return, your Venus return, whatever's up on deck, and sometimes Jupiter returns. They give us a 12-year view of where your opportunities lie most and what is magnified. Okay. So there's a that. So there was a bunch of people who commented underneath that. And so like Serena was like, well, what about the one at about 35? So remember, it's every 12 years. Um, so and then you asked, if I remember correctly, it's the second pass. It's the third pass if there's a retrograde. So when it goes over once and then back and then the third time, that's your actual return date for any planet that goes retrograde. Okay, that's what makes the chart. Most chart softwares will show the first and the second as well as the third. I see that as a progression of emphasis. So, like, what's up on deck the first pass? That's getting your attention. What get you further getting more of an idea of what's going on the second pass, and the third one. That's where you kind of stick your landing. So that's that. So it just depends on what's going on in the returns, but it shows you look at the house. So if it's a first house, Jupiter return, and that's by the chart, not by the transit. If it is a first house Jupiter return chart, you're looking at your physicality, your identity. There's a lot of personal growth. Second house, you're looking at resourcing yourself, economic opportunities. It doesn't mean you're going to win the lottery. It means you're really focusing on your values. Your values are magnified. There's just this big lens on where Jupiter's at. Third house is learning, teaching, writing, more learning, writing, communicating, just really busy day-to-day stuff. If you're a writer, that's a great transit. The words flow really well. Fourth house, you're going to be looking at home, hearth, family. It could be growth, like, healing from family trauma or building new family patterns, gaining understanding of relationships and family, building a family. If you don't have family or don't want family, then it's about your domicile, where you live. You might be working from home, that kind of thing. Fifth house, it's creative self expression. You could be doing a lot of, especially if you're an actor, writer, singer, performer of any kind, there's a lot of, about having to put yourself out there to get opportunity. If you're not any of those things, or an athlete, etc., you still have to, your opportunity comes from putting yourself out there, and it's more solo work than it is networking, right? So you just have to take your risks. You might be having to move past being risk adverse or worried about rejection, because, anytime you shine your light, then there are often people willing to try to knock you down, but that's, not going to be, you're not going to be successful in anything if you don't take that first step and put yourself out there and risk and take the risk. Sixth house is your work, health, and service. So there's kind of a spotlight on that. It doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean it's good. It depends on what else is going on. But there's the emphasis on your work and your health and your service in the world, or people, helping you as well. Seventh house is your partnerships, your contracts, your agreements. There's a lot of focus on, like, client work, contract work, very close relationships, best friends, business partners, spouses, platonic life partners, things like that. Eighth house is going to show your investments, any research. You might get lucky in your research. You might have an emphasis in diving into the mysteries. It's a huge amount of um, learning how to ask for help and get support as well, not just give it. Ninth house is a lot of growth when it comes to preaching and teaching. So getting licenses, doing legal work. You could be traveling a lot and having opportunity in other countries or other states. Travel could be something highly emphasized and magnified. Your goals are going to be magnified. You might be working towards something. Um, and higher education, anything the ninth house rules, if Jupiter's in there, it's magnifying those things. 10th house, you're looking at your ambitions, your reputation. You might be very, very visible over that 10-year period. You could be looking at having um, more recognition, or you could just be, like, sticking out like a sore thumb as well. You could be very focused on your ambitions, if that's the case. So there's that. Let's see. Uh 11th house, you're going to be focused on building community, finding the right collaborators, the right teammates. Not so much at work, but co-creating together, working on your ambitions in a co-creative way. You could be really focused online. You could be um, social media, building audience, etc. 12th house, there's this focus on, the lenses on your connection with the all that is. It's also strategy, strategic thinking, it's opportunity through spiritual pursuits or connection to your guidance. You might become more sensitive in your psychic phenomenon. You could be having to work through any kind of anxieties or depressions, psychological issues that maybe your nervous system is overstimulated. So, getting help with that, learning to trust your connection with the all that is. Because remember, the 12th house is all about fear and faith, limits and liberation. And only we get to liberate ourselves in that space and our connection to the all that is. So that's the Jupiter connection. Um, yeah. So that was great. Hope that answered it. Adrian asked, I'm just finishing listening to your live from last night. That would have been August 5th. Congratulations on getting the book in hand. And the book in question is 2027 Prepared Astrology Planner and Workbook. Would you be able to give us a little sneak peek in the podcast this week? I'm super excited. Yes, I can. Thank you for asking, Adrian. I didn't even put you up to that. So I'm just going to read from the back of this book. It's an 8.5 by 11 workbook, and it's astrology informed planner. There is tons of information about the astrology for 2027 throughout, and it's got regular planning sections. But this book isn't designed to be used on the month to month. It's designed to be looked at ahead of everything. Make sure you got your checklists, the dates you're going to make sure your pantry's full or your gutters are clean. It's focused on economics, weather, etc., because it's based off my 2027 preparations and predictions. And so if you came to the July event, you got the digital copy first. This physical copy is coming out at the end of the month. So I had my proofs and I did a show and tell in the Awake Space community. That's one of the advantages. You guys get to hear about stuff first. So let me just read the back to you. Don't just predict the year, prepare for it. An astrology based planning system for navigating 2027 with confidence. Most astrology planners tell you what might happen. 2027 Prepared helps you decide what to do next. Based on master astrologer Laurie Rivers' acclaimed 2027 preparation and predictions forecast, this planner translates complex astrological cycles into practical, everyday guidance that helps you anticipate change, make better decisions, and prepare with confidence. Rather than focusing on prediction alone, 2027 Prepared provides a framework for turning awareness into action. Each month combines astrological insight with practical preparation, helping you stay ahead of changing conditions while building resilience, confidence, and sustainable habits. Inside, you'll discover monthly preparation guides for weather, finances, and household readiness, weekly astrology insights translated into plain language, practical checklists to help you prepare for challenges, or sorry, practical checklists to help you prepare before challenges arise, reflection prompts that strengthen confidence and decision making, guided planning pages that help you turn insight into action, a year-long workbook designed to build momentum one deliberate step at a time. So, one of the things I really love about this, and big thanks to Eli and Ralph for being my assistants on this project, um, is it's not just a bunch of lists of transits. Yes, we have the transits for the year listed at the front of the book in the 2027 calendar. And each month in the weekly section, you'll see what's going on that week. So, when we look at like January 3rd through the 9th, you'll see that Venus enters Sagittarius, Capricorn, new moon, Venus trine Neptune, Venus opposite Uranus. But if you don't know what those mean, it doesn't really help you, right? That's one of the things that bugs me about, astrological planners is there's an assumption that you know what's going on, and most people don't. Most people only have a basic understanding of what a transit actually is. And there's a lot of fear around transits. So that's why I translated the preparation pages where you get the big idea for the month and where you can look at your own plans, things that you might want to purchase ahead of time, the skills you need to practice, um, as well as doing self assessments. There's lots of little checklists, economic preparation, weather and climate, um, home prep, garden and food, the monthly reminder. And I love this one. um, Preparedness is not about fear, it's about reducing stress before challenges arrive. That's your monthly reminder for January. January is a month to build your foundation. Keep your plans flexible, prepare for changing conditions, and focus on steady progress rather than perfect execution. And then you go through on how to use the Sun Mercury Cazimi because that's how we start January. That's January 1st. So there's some checklists in there and some um, helpful information. January prep. There's a bunch of information there. Key priorities and goals for your profession. What's mattering to you. So you do your own assessment, right? And then your first quarter focus. So, what do I want to work on? Why does this matter to me? It's a guided step by step goal planner. And then uh, just some help on setting the goal, just how to use the energy. And all of the advice is based on the planetary transits that are going on. It's generalized, but it is the general zeitgeist. Okay. So, on an individual level, you may need more support around that in a different way. But this is something I'm very excited about. It comes out at the end of the month in time to really get prepped for 2027. If you missed the 2027 preparations and predictions event, don't worry. We'll be doing another one on December 12th, and you'll be able to register for that soon. So that's kind of exciting. Let's see. Now that I've answered all the questions, I do want to say the craziest thing I saw online this week, and I saw a lot of crazy stuff, was somebody claiming if you have stelliums, it's because you have to work on something in this lifetime you screwed up in a past life. Talk about shitty astrology. Talking with your whole chest. Talking with your whole chest. When it's absolutely there is no foundational evidence in astrology that is I've never heard of such an interpretation. I don't know where they're getting that from, but no, 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 no. First of all, do you know how many people are born during stelliums? Millions. Come on. That's God. Anyway, let's do the Ralph report. Let's talk about what's coming up this week. I'm going to do the Ralph report and give you the rundown of Ralph's favorite predictions that came true. They're not the only ones. They're not the only ones that came true. And then we'll go through what I think is going to be up in the headlines this week. I'm not going to give you the full rundown. If you want the full rundown, you can head over to the Awake Space community linked up in the show notes. But this is kind of a fun one. And then we'll talk about the astrology of the week and what you can do to make the most of it. All right, we're going to start with the Ralph report. I see Ralph got me the cover for the August predictions. Oh, that looks cool. Ralph, that's the first look I got of it. It's very cool looking. It's like beautiful blue with water and tornadoes and kind of a dry landscape. It's very vivid. You guys can pick up the monthly the monthly How Right Was Laurie, the predictions, and that they came through. My archivist Ralph puts these together. He's amazing. So what have we got for the week of August 9th through the 15th? August 9th through the 11th, I had an explosion in a residential neighborhood, could be gas power or power lines because of a storm. There was a person injured after a bungalow explosion. And these are linked as well. Climate change takes center stage. The UN warns of rising food prices due to climate change and energy hikes. I think the first one was in the UK as well. Could see large explosions of significance. There was a large explosion that ripped through an Italian's munitions factory. Communication or broadcast disruption, a Verizon outage of vandalism or a vandal cut fiber cables in Southern California. Then August 11th through the 13th, I had satellite failures, issues with rockets and missiles missing or hitting targets in error. We had a Chinese rocket explode seconds after launch. See, I tell you, these are global, okay? Typhoons, cyclones, winds, fires of all kinds, big tornadoes possible. Typhoon Dolphin floods central China, puts Beijing on alert for heavy rain. It also deeply impacted Japan. Surprise attacks on military installations, Navy ships, or other military commands. Ukraine Zelensky says a nightmare or a nighttime blitz damages Russia's Black Sea naval stronghold. And there was a political scandal, no votes. Votes of no confidence. Australia PM Anthony Albanese under fire for remote remarks over Sinead Takeichi's melon gift. I just butchered that last name. Don't come for me. August 13th through the 15th, public transportation, rail, and freeways under strain. Japan's record rainfall leaves thousands stranded at Narita Airport. 8 were killed. Emergency stay or court stops the federal act. France blocks under 15 social media ban. Seismic activity increased in southern hemisphere, and we saw that devastating 7.7 earthquake off the coast of Indonesia, killing at least 47 and toppling buildings. And that's an old headline, but it's from that time period. Issues with payment gateways or credit card systems. MasterCard payments declined due to global outage caused by a systems update. So that's what I got right for last week. It's not all I got right. There's plenty, but that's Ralph's pick, his favorites. So let me go to my handy dandy what's in the headlines section of the Awake Space Magazine, only available in the Awake Space community. $15 level and up, or you can buy it separately for $19.99. I'll link that up in the show notes. I put this out every single month. This month, I also have an article in there on retrogrades. If I feel generous after recording this bit, I might read a little bit of it to you so you can get a sample of what you get in the magazine because I give an astrology education in there as well. Alrighty. All right. We've got the moon in Libra. We've got the moon in Libra, August 15th through the 17th. And you know how I always make a joke in it? You know, you guys are used to seeing me do these until I tucked it away. The moon in Libra is fed up. The moon in Libra is fed up. And if you've ever known somebody with the moon in Libra, when they say they're fed up, walk away. I got big storms, big wind, temperature changes, issues with air and ocean currents. Winds could be extreme and hot. That's global. Let's see. Massive transportation failures, air accidents, or planes grounded. Airspace could be closed. Now remember, this is what I expect to see in the headlines. You personally can have a great day. All right. We could see transformers blow, power outages, high wind because of high winds and storms. We could see a big explosion involving gas, oxygen, or helium. Early hours of the 15th in the United States, I caught a headline. I caught a headline that there was a helium canister in Egypt that blew up and caused quite a bit of damage. It was in like a public space. Let's see. That changes in leadership could see resignations, removals, deaths, or need new leadership installed. That's political as well as business. We can see failed military campaigns or military campaigns backfiring, and we could see a leader face a crisis because of a military campaign. A big accident on a major road or railway. So we could see more big railways. Let's see. Again, big storm is the biggest. I think that we could also see some kind of storm impact Mexico and Southern California possible. So or move up through northwest Mexico. And we could see a high profile court case delayed or dismissed. August 17th through the 20th, we have the moon in Scorpio and it's wiping the blade. It's already stabbed somebody. I do this to amuse myself. Let's see. We could see a mystery solved. It could be a cold case or they could find the root cause of an accident. We could see increased volcanic seismic activity or a chemical explosion. And I'm looking at the northern part of South America, the Caribbean, and even in the Mediterranean. There's very explosive energy in those directions. We could see record rainfall. Let's see. We could see a mass grave site discovered, and it could be archaeological. We could see wells and aquifers or water supply in general in the headlines. Again, new archaeological finds, even a new dinosaur. Dinosaurs, right? Or fossils discovered. I'm trying to give you some good news. Tensions increase in all active conflict regions, so we don't see peace coming anytime soon. We can see issues with mining. There could be a cave collapse. I'm looking at Asia, Southeast Asia, subcontinent. August 20th through the 22nd, the moon in Sagittarius thrusts and parries, and that is from sword fighting. No, fencing. On guard. We could see an increase in wildfires, bushfires, urban fires, and arsons out of control. Big fires, not just in the United States, but Europe, UK, and Ireland possible. NATO could be making a big announcement or gives a warning, or it might take action. We could see a former or current leader held to account for corruption that's global. Let's see, I've got like 50 of these per page, and I'm trying to like not just pick all the scary ones. We can see court cases over climate change, fossil fuel industry like under the gun. Agreement regarding a border is struck between two warring parties. And so that's global. Probably not the Iran situation, maybe Ukraine and Russia, but I doubt it. And we could hear a lot about marinas, ports, and port authorities. When I'm making these predictions, these are themed and they are what I think will be up in the headlines. And I've got about everywhere from like 35 to 50 per page. And then we end the week with the moon in Capricorn, and the moon in Capricorn throws the hammer. Let's see, just picking a couple. We could see a historic temple, church, or religious site could see damage from weather, seismic activity, or bombing. And conversely, so like same day, you could hear about two different kinds of stories. We could see a historic structure, especially religious, in the news regarding repairs or renovations. So keep your eye on food because we got a lot of food recalls coming up this week. And food poisoning, food recalls, especially involving dairy or protein powders, are in the headlines. We can see big leadership shakeups in, both political and business wise. We can see a big information leak come out probably around next Monday. We could see a major event in the UK or Ireland, and it could be with a female politician or prominent public figure. And I think some high profile leaders may be injured or have something happen to them is possible. So that's what I think is going to be in the headlines, everybody. It's going to be interesting for sure. But on a personal level, we have a lot more wiggle room and a lot more agency. And these can be really, really creative days. Really, really creative days. You don't have to live in dread. It's just how it is. Let's see. Got Virgo season coming up. Got Virgo season coming up this week. There we go. Virgo season is, I think, on the 20th, but let's double check. It could be the 21st. I gotta. I gotta look at my own calendar. If you get the Awake Space Magazine, all of the major events happen 23rd. There we go. Sun moves into Virgo on the 23rd. There we go. See, gotta look at those. Gotta look at those. Alrighty, let's take a peek. Yeah. So this week on Saturday, the big energy shift is we've got the sun moving into Virgo. So that it'll probably be in the evening. So let's this week, because we don't see like massive changes in the energy, we're ending up Leo season. Pulling up the chart here. That I'm a little bit concerned about big storms on the 17th. And I know a lot of the pop astrologers use the true node. I use the mean node, and it changes on the 18th. It changes on the 18th. So the lunar north node changes to Aquarius on the 18th of August, and it, there's probably some interesting events happening that day. There's not a lot of afflicting anything happening with it, but what I do see is that the moon in Scorpio is going to be squaring off with it later in the evening on the West Coast or on the morning of the 19th on the East Coast. And this could be weather. This could be an interesting event happening politically. We're going to just see some really big storms the 17th and 18th. Lots of water happen. And we're going to continue to see more of that. We've got Venus moving into opposition with Saturn retrograde. And this is a chance to really take a look at what matters. Like, why have we let ourselves be told that one thing is a status symbol over another? Why don't we understand what really matters to us? We're going to be making a lot of those questioning statements as we move through the week. Yeah, a lot of questioning of what matters, especially as we get into the 22nd. And the sun will be on top of the lunar south node in opposition to the north node on the 22nd as well. I think before the sun leaves Leo, we're all going to hear about it. We're all going to hear about it. So that's kind of what's coming up this week. And how do you move through it? How do you move through it? I just got crap. Sorry, this is coming in just now. Another prediction just came through. Hayden Panettiere has died. It's in the news. Okay, so you're getting this live as I record this. I got to go check my Patreon. Alicia, my assistant, just texted me. She's 36. That's so young. Okay, so an actress, so young. Wow, that was a prominent figure. Could see a prominent female figure have a sudden illness, removal, or death. So a little bit earlier than the date I had posted. But it came in. Probably we'll see another one, unfortunately. But yeah. All right. Let's talk about retrogrades. What's the real story? And I'll read a little bit from the article in the Awake Space magazine, which I still haven't gotten any oohs and ahs over my retrograde table. Okay. It took forever to figure out which table I wanted to use. And then I had to make the thing, and it involved thinking in numbers. Come on, guys. Give me a round of applause. I'm kidding. All right. Coming up next, we're going to talk about the real story behind the retrogrades. Every single month, besides really cool horoscopes that help you know how to take your next move. They're not just stay in bed. They rate them for the rising signs, give you lots of instructions on what to do. And if you don't know your rising sign, you can still do it for your sun sign. But I also write astrology articles where you can learn how to use the energy, understand the mechanics of astrology. And I was getting a lot of questions about retrogrades because, of course, the internet decided Saturn in retrograde is going to show you more karma. And I'm like, actually, no. But okay, it's when I get quiet on social media because I keep seeing all these things and I'm like, for fuck's sake, people, let's do it right. I get tired, okay? But anyway, I decided to write this article. It's Retrogrades, the real story. And it's in the August 2026 magazine. These are really good references, guys. I try to write the material I was looking for as a student of astrology. So here we go. One of the great ways into studying astrology is the popular cry of Mercury is in Gatorade. Mercury retrograde is referenced so commonly in popular culture that even people who don't have much interest in astrology discuss the quarterly 3-week event with apparent expertise. For the curious, this sparks research rabbit holes into the meaning of retrograde, and Reddit and other forums are happy to oblige with half-truths, urban myths, and outright fabricated fibs. We cannot leave astronomy out of astrology. Until the late 18th century, the two were the same subject. The content creators who claimed that astrology is being conflated with astronomy must have skipped a lesson or two when it came to understanding this very normal and natural cycle. Ever since the mid 20th century, pop astrology has used retrograde to sensationalize these natural events. Real astrologers never throw astronomy out of the picture. What we do as Western tropical astrologers is understand that we live on Earth, and it is from this vantage point that that our perceptions are shaped. We know the Earth isn't the center of the solar system. It is, however, the center of our individual reality. Our job is to expand our understanding of this reality, not one in which we do not live. That's the first big answer to what is a retrograde question. It's a natural cycle that is experienced through perception of those observing life from a geocentric, Earth based point of view. Planets don't move backwards in the sky. It's an optical illusion that we on Earth experience. From our perception, from our perspective on Earth, the planets, Mercury through Pluto, look like they move backwards on a regular schedule. This is called apparent retrograde because of the illusion provided by our atmosphere. The phenomenon of retrograde marks time when the influence of the planet that is retrograde is slightly diminished. To our perspective, the energy represented by the retrograde planet changes either in intensity or activity attributed to the planet. Though this can be perceived as negative by some in the public arena, most of the negative attribution to planets that are retrograde is due to ignorance on the subject matter. Retrogrades represent a shift in energy, and that shift is neither good nor bad. It just is a shift. Often, the shift that occurs gives people the opportunity to slow down, review, go within, and find missed opportunities and plan for when the planet is in direct motion. Then I have my handy dandy frequency of retrograde per planet table. Okay. Every 3.5 months, Mercury is retrograde. Venus is retrograde every 18 months. Mars is retrograde every 26 months. Jupiter through Pluto go retrograde for every year, every 12 months. Okay. Every 12 months. All right. Mercury is only retrograde for 22 days. Venus is retrograde for 42 days, which we do have Venus retrograde coming up soon. Mars is retrograde for 70 days. Jupiter is retrograde for 120 days. Saturn is retrograde for 140 days. Uranus is retrograde for 152 days. Neptune is retrograde for 152 days. And Pluto is retrograde for about 162 days out of 365 every damn year. It's not rare. Oh, God. Astrology works with time and the cycle. Astrology works with time and the cyclical nature of physical existence. As seen on the table on the left, retrograde is a rather common occurrence, the biggest variables being Venus and Mars, since they do not go retrograde on a yearly basis. Having retrograde planets in a natal chart is neither rare nor does it indicate anything negative to the native's personality life. All right. So the rest of the article, which you can find in the August magazine, is talking about dealing with retrograde if you have it natally. How rare is it to have a retrograde planet in your chart? Which it's not that rare. It's actually more rare to have every planet direct or planets at station. And then I describe each of the planets when they are in direct and retrograde motion. So you can check that out in this month's magazine, August 2026 issue. It's linked up in the show notes. Let's talk about the big dates of this week. We have Mars square Neptune on the 17th. That's Tuesday. Mercury trine Saturn and Venus sextile Jupiter. Those are really good days to take a pragmatic approach to life. This is not a time to be a Pollyanna. It's not a time for rose colored glasses. We can look at reality without being negative because being realistic and pessimistic are not the same thing. We want to be pragmatic. So we want to look at like what's the smartest thing we can do, okay, while facing reality. August 18th, we've got the shifting into Aquarius. All right. And if the North Node's shifting into Aquarius, the South Node moves into Leo because it's an axis. Remember, it's a mathematical calculation point. August 21st, we have Venus in opposition to Saturn. I talked about that a little bit earlier. And then the Sun is conjunct the South Node on the 22nd. And the moon or not the moon, the Sun ingresses into Virgo on the 23rd. August 24th. Is it the 23rd or the 22nd? It's late on the 20th. It's the 23rd. That's a typo. Mercury is conjunct the South Node on the 24th. So next week, we're going to talk about why your mindset matters because that full moon, yeah, Mercury and the Sun are conjunct. Mercury and the Sun is conjunct. It's going to be interesting. If you're wondering where that full moon is, it's at 4 degrees, 54 minutes of Pisces. So 4 degrees, 54 minutes of Pisces. So in honor of Virgo season, I'm going to end this podcast reading the Virgo rising horoscope that I wrote. And you can find that on page 21. Why worry? I titled these just like I do the horoscope or the predictions. Activated houses. This month highlights your 12th house of faith, limits, and liberation. The second house of security and self worth, sixth house of systems, and 11th house of networking and collaboration. Your energy is being asked to strengthen your resources, improve your daily systems, build meaningful connections, and create space for rest, reflection, and renewal. You might notice a great desire for quiet time, reflection, and behind the scenes work. New opportunities to improve your finances or recognize your value. Friends, groups, or collaborations playing a larger role in your plans. A growing awareness of which daily habits support your well being and which ones you need to change. This is information. It is not a directive. Just because you notice these things doesn't mean you need to act on all of them. Instinctual patterns. So remember, we've got the 3 layers of consciousness. We've got our instinctual, our social conditioning, and our deliberate. So your instinctual pattern when you're under pressure. When these arenas are activated, your instinct might be to stay busy so you don't have to slow down. Try to solve every problem on your own. Overanalyze your next step instead of trusting what you've already learned. This often shows up when you're carrying more responsibility than you realize. Your deliberate choice, the more aligned use of this energy. A more aligned way to work with this energy is to give yourself permission to rest without feeling like you have to earn it. Build routines that support your long-term health, work, and peace of mind. And invest your time in people and communities that encourage your growth rather than drain your energy. Sometimes your greatest progress comes from creating space before taking the next step. What daily habits and relationships deserve my energy, and what am I ready to release to create more balance? That's what we've got for the Virgo rising horoscope. You can read the rest with the lunation instructions, what to do with the new moon and full moon, etc. That's in there too. That's what we've got. That's what we've got. Getting ready for Virgo season. Time to dot our I's and cross our T's and get ourselves in. All right, folks. It is easy to get caught up in the outrage. And so, as we move through the next 2 weeks, I want us all to practice doing a couple of things. When you feel yourself compelled to do something, stop. Just give yourself a minute. Just be like, how is this helping me? Is this moving me further ahead in life or is this draining my energy? How important is it for me to give my opinion right now? What does giving my opinion right now actually do for me? Yeah. It might be to your benefit. If it is, do it. If it's not, if there's other things you could be doing that further you ahead, I would put my energy that puts me further ahead right now. Very important. Okay. If you're just getting caught up in an argument for the sake of being seen, probably not the better strategy. And then ask yourself, why am I so outraged? Why did this hit me the way it hit me? Why did I have such a strong reaction to that? What do I know that's true about me? Because if that hit my insecurities, what am I insecure about? What am I afraid of? How true are those fears? Is that a realistic fear? Is it something I have to worry about? Or is it because I worry about my relevance? How can I be more relevant? Do I need these people to see me as relevant? Do I need these people to be in agreement with me? Right. Yeah. That's what we can do as we wind up, you know, as we move through this week and go into next week, like really self examining. So we are not utilized as pawns on the chessboard of life. So, alrighty. All right. I'm gonna keep this one short because man, I gotta get back to building the website. If you've been on my live streams, you've seen a sneak peek of the interactive part. It's very cool. That website's going to be awesome. And stay tuned because the 2027 Prepared Astrology Informed Planner and Workbook will be coming out soon, end of the month. And then you'll be able to get ahead and get prepped for a very interesting 2027. All right. We'll talk to you next week. Don't forget to check the show notes.